claiming they're here to save 2020, we have Little G ice cream. Welcome back. A lot of you, probably most of you, have heard of Little G. I don't know how many actually got to try it back in the day, but it was some very good ice cream. Came on the scene pretty quickly all of a sudden. I'm not going to get into her whole story. Grace is her name. Little G, Grace. You can, read, Google, research more about her. But basically, she was at a young age. I can't remember exactly. I want to say 17, somewhere in there. Definitely teens. But just started whipping up this ice cream, and it was hella good. Tons of mix-ins, and she really just came on, took the ice cream game by storm all of a sudden. Long story short, I think she was around maybe I'm going to say it was definitely a year, maybe a year and a half, closer to 2 years, but she really grew very quickly, outgrew her supply. Demand was way higher than supply. She tried to grow with it, and her product, I guess it's safe to say, suffered pretty dramatically towards the end of her ice cream, I shouldn't say career because she's back, but ice cream startup. And all of a sudden it was gone. It stopped one day. I think, give her credit. She wanted to go to college and do this. I don't know the whole story, but basically her company's been MIA for a good, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years now. This says it was started back in 2016, but I feel like she was around at least through 17, maybe early 18s. Actually, 18 is probably a stretch. But anyway, she's back on the scene. Now, she released a whole bunch of, I shouldn't say a whole bunch of flavors. I'm pulling up the site now. I should have had this done. But flavors that a lot of them were repeats, and some of them, I ordered 4. The 4 I ordered, I had not scooped yet, and I did that on purpose. I don't like re-scooping. I wanted to do what was new, and B, I wanted to get a feel of what the quality of this ice cream was going to be like before it returned. So she had salted caramel cheesecake, which we're going to review. Chocolate milk and cookies, which I had, was very, very good. I think this was back before I started giving ratings. I don't think I started rating until 2017 or 2018. So none of these had ratings on them, but I would have given a good amount of them a minimum of 9. I'm sure there would have been a few 10s. Coffee and donuts was one I've had. Chocolate peanut butter cup was one I had. Triple cookie dough I've had. Peanut butter and jelly I've had. Coffee toffee caramel I've had. The 4 new ones that I hadn't had and I specifically ordered to try were salted caramel cheesecake, jelly donut, and maple brown sugar pancake, and lastly, s'mores. So that's enough. That's a pretty long intro. This is going to be a long review just because it deserves a story. You need to know where she came from, what's been happening, all that. But they claim they're here to save 2020. Let's see how it goes, and we're going to dig into the 4 pints I ordered. So we're going to do things a little differently here because, frankly, I don't know where to start. And fair warning, you need to buckle up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to review, just give you a breakdown of the quality of the bases as a whole. And then we'll get into the specific mix-ins and overall flavors of each pint. But right off the bat, I mean, it's not a good thing. I'm able to scoop these right out of the freezer. 0 tempering. And I know some of you out there are like, well, I always scoop it right out of the freezer. Well, you shouldn't do that. It needs to temper. This one doesn't require tempering. I can properly scoop it straight out of the freezer, and my spoon just cuts right through the ice cream. It doesn't even fight back. That's never a good thing. It's very soft, a little gummy, fairly gummy, and I've been doing this a while. I don't know for sure, but there's quite a bit of overrun here. So, in summary, the quality of these bases it's pretty bad. I hate to say it, but it's pretty bad. Some of them borderline terrible. The only one that's remotely fairly dense and thick is the one we're about to scoop, salted caramel cheesecake. Just because it probably has some cheese. It's a cheesecake at base. Probably has some cheese in the base. But overall, these bases need a tremendous amount of work, and it is nowhere near what it used to be back in the day. I'm glad that's out of the way. Let's talk flavor and mix-ins. So, undeniably, there were some high points throughout these 4 scoops that I'm going to get into, but I also had some problems as well. So we're going to start with salted caramel cheesecake, which is a cheesecake ice cream with salted caramel swirls and graham cracker crust pieces. And very good job on the cheesecake base as far as flavor. It's tangy. It's not super tangy, but it's definitely it's tangy, and it's definitely cheesy. And it's not overly sweet. Got to give it to her. Very well flavored cheesecake ice cream here. My biggest issue with this pint, besides the base, which is, we've already got into that, is having to dig for that salted caramel swirl. I mean, you can see how far down I've gotten before I actually finally hit some. And that's definitely not the old ways of Little G. These are like layered in almost. You can kind of see the layers here. There's a layer there, layer here. So I had to get to right here before I even hit caramel. But back in the day, it would have just been a whole cluster of mix-ins everywhere. And that's a shame because the salted caramel also had really good flavor. It definitely takes the stance of buttery and salty, which is underappreciated. Most people, the salted caramel swirls still tend to be sweet, but this is way more buttery and salty than it is that caramelized sweetness. It, just like the cheesecake base, has pretty darn good flavor. The graham cracker crust pieces, yeah, that's right, were basically a crumble, as you can see here, and it was way better spread throughout than the salted caramel swirl. This was much more constant. And for graham cracker, which generally has a tough time standing out against other flavors, this has a pretty noticeable honey graham flavor as well as a little butteriness. So I think it's a great addition, and it pairs really well with the cheesecake acting as the pie crust. As you can see, the caramel is all sunk to the bottom here, which is, I mean, even though it's good, it's not a good thing. It would have been better off being in the top half of the pint. Maybe it wasn't sunk down. I wouldn't like to think that. Nonetheless, it's the base really holding this back, as you all know by now, but the overall flavor does come together pretty well. And it may be a stretch, but I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. And just another thing to note is, like normally, like the past two reviews with Cafe Pana, I brought all these suckers out and laid them on the table, tempered beautifully. If I've done that with all 4 of these pints, we'd be dealing with soup by the last review. So I'm having to run back and forth to the freezer. Yeah, I probably need the extra steps, but it's not ideal, and it just goes to show you a little more about the base. Jelly donut. Vanilla bean ice cream with chunks of donuts and a raspberry jam swirl. You've been warned. A lot of issues with this one. The raspberry swirl it's good, but it's way too sweet, and it's also very strong. I can't even taste the vanilla bean ice cream. I mean, look, there's a lot of vanilla bean there, and I can't even taste it. I do get the bean of the vanilla bean, like it's a funny aftertaste, but zero vanilla flavor because of that very strong and sweet raspberry jam swirl. The donut chunks aren't bad. As many of you know, donuts, they're a very tough mix-in. They easily harden in the ice cream. And I don't necessarily want to call these hard, but they are, let's say, stale-like. Very firm chew to them, but they're also sort of like spongy. It's almost like a slightly harder cake chunks. Well, I guess it could be a cake donut now that I think about it. Nonetheless, you get my point. And there's no flavor to them. I mean, I'm sure they had flavor, but we've already discussed about how strong that raspberry swirl is. So it's safe to say that here they're purely for textural purposes. Balance with the vanilla bean base and the swirl, aka not such a strong raspberry swirl, would help this pint out quite a bit. But as it stands right now, it needs a lot of work. 5 out of 10. Maple brown sugar pancake ice cream. Maple ice cream with pieces of fluffy pancakes and brown sugar cinnamon swirls. Job well done on the maple. It's not overboard. It's just sweet enough, like you're drizzling some syrup onto your pancakes. I'm not the biggest fan of maple in general, but this is quite enjoyable. Fluffy pancakes. I mean, I guess you can call it fluffy because it was fluffy when they were thrown in. I mean, you can see the thickness here. But there's one big issue. They are hard. Maybe not rock hard because I can chew them. They like crumble apart, but they are hard. It's like when you take a frozen pancake out of the freezer, in the frozen product, and you put it in your toaster and you toast it, and you either like forget it was there, or you walk away for a little bit and it sits after it's being toasted and it's hard. So basically it's a very tough chew, very hard. And on top of that, there is no pancake flavor to them at all. The brown sugar cinnamon swirl is what dials up the sweetness for this particular pint. Definitely way more brown sugary sweet than cinnamon spice, but the cinnamon is certainly noticeable. Average thickness, not the densest of swirls, but I've definitely had worse. It's even, I don't know if you can tell, but it's even a little gritty. Look, I get it. I don't think there's been a company yet to be able to pull off pancake chunks in ice cream. It's tough to do. But between the quality of the base and the quality of these pancake chunks, there's certainly a lot to be addressed here. 5 out of 10, but we still have s'mores ice cream to dig into, which is a graham cracker ice cream with swirls of fudge, mini marshmallows, and graham cracker crumble. These frickin' mini marshmallows again. Golly, do I hate them as a mix-in. But ironically enough, they're a bit different here and better. So they're almost like those, those really, really small ones that also go in your hot cocoa, but they're like dehydrated. They're almost like crispy. These are kind of like that, but a little bigger. Basically, they're not near as squishy. And actually, they stay put in the ice cream as your spoon. You can just cut right through them and they stay put. They don't like squish and come out with it. So they're still, I guess, soft and chewy. They're still soft and chewy. There's definitely no crisp to them, but they're not as like squishy, chewy as usual. And as expected, they are extremely sweet. The fudge swirl is more than potent. It is extremely fudgy, almost so rich and chocolatey that it seems borderline artificial. Like it's just too much and it overpowers everything. Not near as dense as the caramel. It's a little more runny, and I think this will prove my point. I mean, you don't see much here, but look at this. The whole bottom of the pint is nothing but fudge, which is gonna be tough to, I probably won't eat it if somebody did eat it. That is just way too much to be caked or sunk to the bottom. Between the marshmallows and that incredibly rich fudge swirl, you might as well forget about the graham cracker ice cream. You can't even taste any graham in here. And as far as they said it was graham cracker crumble, like I'm halfway down now and I have yet to see any, come across any. So that is non-existent unless it is mixed into this fudge and it's just not even noticeable, not even texturally noticeable. Unfortunately, this is easily the worst of the bunch of the 4 I ordered. I know I said there was no balance in the jelly donut, but this one is even more one-sided. 3.5 out of 10. I do need to say this because some people might think otherwise, but I am by no means out to get anybody. I hate to say bad things about the ice cream, but it is what it is. It's what I do. I'm here to let you know about it. I hope this serves as constructive criticism because that's exactly what I want it to be. I hope Grace and her team see this. I just have a hard time believing that Grace, being from what she produced years ago, would let this come onto the market. The quality of the bases, it is nowhere near what it used to be. Maybe, I can say the salted caramel cheesecake is worth ordering, but still the bases are, they're pretty bad. So, obviously, I think I spent $75 on this for 4. There's no way I could recommend you purchasing this, not with, other players, ice cream companies in the game. But like I said, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to help, provide you with info, but also provide the company with feedback. I can't vouch for the other 6 flavors we talked about earlier, the ones that I've already scooped that were very good back in the day, the chocolate peanut butter, the coffee toffee caramel, the coffee and donuts, the list goes on, but I can't vouch for those. I know I will sit back and hope they address some issues before I order again. I probably will order again in the future as long as I see some sort of change, but I don't think I'm out of place here. I've heard from others, and I think you'll see some more reviews down the pipeline from big time names as well. So with that said, there's your review of the Little G comeback. I wish them the best. Hope things get back on board. As it stands, I can't recommend this pack. It's not even a pack. I can't recommend you purchasing for now. If you had a different experience, please tell me otherwise in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I want to find out more of what's going on with the Little G brand. As always, thanks for watching, guys.